Hello and welcome back. I am your talk host, Dawn Westmoreland, coming from the Empowered Whistleblower Radio Show. My show is all about healing, empowerment, courage, resiliency, and more. I bring on the best guests to talk about these subjects. The show is syndicated with Pacifica Network, and it can be heard on up to 200 radio stations in the United States, Canada, and the Virgin Islands on Tuesdays at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time Zone in Asheville, North Carolina. Now, it may come on a different time if you're in Seattle or if you're in the Virgin Islands. So, I'd like to welcome a personal friend of mine. I've been a client of his, is Anthony Mikolojeski. He lives in Hendersonville, North Carolina, and that's only about 20, 30 minutes from Asheville, depending on the I-26 traffic. I am coming from WPVM FM 103.7, the voice of Asheville. Anthony, welcome. It's so good to talk to you today.
Well, thank you, Don. Thank you for inviting me. It's an honor to be here. Um, I I live in, of course, Western North Carolina here. I used to live in Asheville for many years and then moved to Hendersonville. And I go by the Asheville Medium. And I have my office here in Hendersonville, and I do readings one-on-one in person, and I do phone readings, Zoom readings as well. And you can catch my services and read all about me on my website at asheville.medium.com.
Now, before we get into mediumship and psychic abilities, let me ask you about your past. Now, I know about your past, but our listeners are going to be really curious and wonder, what did you used to do? You did some pretty high-end stuff.
Well, I decided a long time ago I was going to go into computer science, and so I have my degree in that. However, I was always very creative as a child, and I kind of was led into the hair industry and did hair for 47 years. And actually, I had my salon in Asheville too for about 13 years in downtown Asheville. But my journey, as a hairdresser, I'm originally from Detroit, from the Detroit metropolitan area. And I worked at a salon for about 8 or 9 years and then had my own business and then my own businesses. And then moved to London, England, and I lived there for about 5 years. And I worked at Vidal Sassoon's and got a great opportunity there. And then moved to Florida for a while. And then after Florida, I moved to Asheville and opened my salon there on Wall Street. So it's been quite a journey. You know, I can tell you that my mediumship has unfolded. Um, how would I say? It's something that I didn't expect that I was going to be doing as a profession, because I do work now as a full-time medium. I've had a lot of spiritual experiences as a child, and it kind of led up to getting psychic insights and premonitions. And there's just a lot of aha moments that were like, Dawn, I was just questioning, like, what's going on? Why am I experiencing all this and why me? And I think that's pretty normal because I never focused on wanting to be a medium. And I had then I kind of started taking some classes in psychic development, and from psychic development I started taking classes on mediumship, and that through my mentors gave me the confidence and the understanding of why this was happening to me. And for all your viewers, it's something that I didn't choose, but it's something that I embrace and I find it very sacred. So
Absolutely.
yeah, so that's where I'm at now. So I work full time as a medium. And it's probably the most beautiful thing I have ever done in my life. And I really feel for most of my life, I didn't, even though I was doing hair and I was, reaching the pinnacle of that. it still never felt like it was, is this all I'm going to be doing? That's what I kept saying to myself, you know? And so the mediumship really gave me that fulfillment, that giving back of healing, that, um, being able to help others. Because, mediumship is about healing, mediumship is about giving the client closure. Um, Maybe they didn't have a great relationship with a loved one in their family. And so we do cover a lot of sensitive things in the reading that will come from spirit. And, I try to explain to people that it's not only giving them the comfort and the healing, but it's also bringing the joy, the forgiveness, feeling that love from that loved one, and it might even be feeling the love from that loved one for the first time. Maybe that person wasn't loving or caring
Yeah.
while they're here in the physical world, right? And so, as mediums, we give that comfort to our clients. Um, and also the joy, the laughter, the good times as well. It's not just about negative relationships or sensitive issues. So I want to make that kind of clear to the audience. Uh, I tend to bring some laughter and joy into my readings, and they want to. I always ask about, tell me some funny experiences, and the evidence will come through in the details for the client, and that kind of uplifts the experience.
Yeah.
Mediumship should be about the upliftment of another person. It should be in an uplifting experience. Let's just put it that way.
Absolutely. And I have to share with the listeners, I have had readings with Anthony, and I don't know how to even explain how accurate he is. It's just amazing. I'll give one good example. I have a grandmother on my father's side, Grandma Eula, and Anthony, you brought when she came through and you brought her in and you communicated with her, you described her to a T. She loved Minnie Pearl, and you described Minnie Pearl, and then you started giving me, comments from my grandmother that were so not gentle, not vague, but like absolutely specific. I mean, I about fell out of my seat when you did that. I'm like, that is just amazing. Now, I know you've won a lot of different awards. You've been recognized by quite a few people for your accuracy. Let's talk about some of the awards that you've won. Because I know sometimes psychics out there receive a bad name, and we know there's good psychics and then there's not so good psychics.
Well, I think we all work differently. And I think as any profession or any focus of work that you do, it depends on how much work you put into what you do. I personally have put a lot of work in studying with a lot of prestigious mediums that teach around the world. I've been to the prestigious College of Arthur Findlay in England, which took me back to England to go study in advanced mediumship. I take my work very seriously because I love it, and I think the most important thing that we have to remember as mediums, or even if you're working psychically and you're not a medium, because the energies are completely different. If you're a psychic, that doesn't mean you're a medium, but if you are a medium, you're a psychic and a medium. Okay, um, and the difference is that in mediumship, you're raising your energy to connect with those who have lived in the physical world and have now crossed over to spirit. Psychic is working and blending with your auric field as a psychic with the person that you're working with. And then you're able to connect with their spirit guides. You're able to um, reflect what was in the past of their life and how it brought them to where they are now, and then opportunities for them going forward in their life. So that's psychic. So they're completely two different energies. Um, but I just want to say that again, I've worked really hard to get to my accuracy. I've worked with mediums like Mavis Patilla. I studied with her exclusively, and she used to be the matriarch of Arthur Findlay College. She's since passed. But her teachings remain in my heart, and I take it very seriously. She taught us how to work much harder as a medium to go to spirit and get the information, and and that's probably what has really influenced me to get to a pinnacle of accuracy. Um, I Most of my Google reviews, actually, all my Google reviews are on my Google page, Anthony Mikolojeski, Psychic Medium. So you can see my Google reviews there. And I also have a lot more reviews on my website. And those Google reviews are also on my website. Um, but yeah, I keep it at a 5 star. I'm hoping to maintain that because I try to reach for the highest intentions of what I'm doing. And I'm just glad that everybody's happy with what I'm doing and how it's made them feel and has given them that healing or comfort or reassurance that their loved one is doing great in the spirit world. And the healing obviously has allowed them to be, um, I don't know, maybe let me rephrase that. The healing has allowed them to be able to move forward in their life.
I get that. Yeah.
Okay.
Would you be willing to share a short story of how you helped empowered someone or helped heal somebody? And of course, we're not going to use their name or give any indication of who they are.
Oh, yeah. I had someone come in for a reading, and this has been it's not just one client. I've had, several over the years. Now I have been working as a medium full time now for 15 years, but I've been doing psychic readings for over 25 years on and off. But when I say I'm working professionally, that means I have a website, I've been up and running, I'm taking appointments, that sort of thing. Um, but I do run across clients that have maybe a relative that they don't want to hear from because they may have been abused either physically or verbally or both, or they have been I would say maybe isolated where the parent has disappeared and hasn't give them any kind of love or value in their life. And there's that missing component where you don't connect with the parent.
Mhm.
You didn't have a father figure, maybe you didn't have a mother figure in your life, and how that has affected your life, right?
Mhm.
Sometimes they'll say, I don't want to hear from them. And I'll say, well, I
Very
can certainly, yeah, I can certainly honor that. However, I do explain to them that, it is important to hear from them because you're here for a healing service.
Mhm.
And your father or your mother might have been gone for 20 years, and they're kind of have been in a healing evolution here in the spirit world. And this is the first time they're communicating with you. This is pretty special, right? And they have a lot to say. And they might say, I'm sorry for the very first time in their whole life because they couldn't do that while they're here in the physical world. So it is really important. It's comforting. Of course, it's very emotional, but everything that goes through uh, my appointments is very private and confidential. And I can't really go into details of someone's experience, Dawn, but you kind of get the full picture,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I know your viewers would too. Um, and I do a lot of demonstration as far as a medium too, which I get up in front of large audiences and I do mediumship on stage. And for those of you who have never been to a demonstration, um, you buy tickets and you come in and you sit as an audience, and there may be, 50 people, there may be 200 people. And what I do is I get on stage and I connect with spirit, and I will randomly bring in people from spirit and describe how they passed, describe their personality, their traits. Um, and, they may say, I have my daughter here in the audience, or I have my relatives here. And they'll talk about a few experiences, and then the hands will go up. And I'll do a process of elimination, which I'll go to spirit and keep bringing the information in until we find out who we're supposed to be working with. Um, you know, Sometimes people get really maybe scared thinking that, oh my gosh, my uncle who was this horrible person to me may come through. If that ever comes through where there's someone, it's a very sensitive issue and someone in the family comes through, I handle it very professionally. And I think it's very important to stress to my audience that I'm never here to embarrass you or to insult you or to, um, you know, um, unveil something that maybe the rest of the family or the neighbors or the community doesn't know. Um, I will say I have, this uncle here, and he will give me indicators of what took place. And I'll be very vague about it, but the person sitting there will understand, you know, the person who's receiving the message will understand. Um, and so there will be some forgiveness. And I will say, well, he wants to say, I'm so sorry I did this to you. And I'm asking for forgiveness. And I'm so sorry from the bottom of my heart. And that's really, really, really healing. It might not be like an instant message on your phone, but over time to hear I'm sorry is really important. The other thing too is that if somebody in the audience doesn't get a message, a lot of the messages that I'm giving to the people that are receiving messages does kind of um, ripple through the audience because there will be similar situations for others who will kind of, you know, understand that the spirit world is all about forgiveness, love, and healing. Okay. And some of those messages they can relate to, or they might have had an uncle that did the same thing to them, you see. And so the message is healing not only to that one person, but it could bounce to five other people in that audience. Who knows? So it has that ripple effect, right?
Sure does.
So yeah.
Now, Anthony, I've known you a while, so I know a lot more about you than most people do if they've never heard of you. Now, when somebody says, hey, I died of a heart attack or a stroke, and don't you get physical symptoms when you are talking to them, like your heart feels different or you feel some kind of pain?
Yeah, as mediums, we get just like maybe a quarter of a second of that kind of effect from spirit when we're connecting and blending with them. The spirit world never takes over your body. They blend. It's a mind to mind blending, and it's always coming from a loving thing. There's never anything evil. There's never anything, um, aggressive or anything like that. It always comes from a very loving place. And of course, I put out the highest intentions when I'm working. So I have just never experienced any of that. And if I did, I wouldn't be doing mediumship, to be honest with you. Yeah, but yeah, they do give us those just slight symptoms, or
Okay.
maybe say for example, one time I was doing a reading and I started kind of choking, where I couldn't catch my breath.
Okay.
And I had to go and get some water, and I don't usually leave the room in the middle of appointment, but I came back and I said, "Was she choking when she was passing?" And she says, "Oh my
Oh,
gosh, yes." You know, and I'm just like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry that that
mm.
happened." But she gave me that just for a brief moment. It doesn't hurt us as mediums, but it gives us the we're blended so much and so close to them that we just get an inclination of how they passed. Does that make sense?
Oh, that makes absolute sense.
Yeah,
I know also too, you teach courses. You teach psychic courses, mediumship courses in
I
the
do.
Hendersonville, North Carolina area. So you've got some classes coming up. Can we talk about them?
Yeah, I have a lot of classes coming up. I teach locally here in Hendersonville. I teach psychic development and all levels of mediumship as well. So I teach demonstration, how to do platform mediumship and demonstrating in front of audiences. I teach beginner mediumship, intermediate mediumship. I have three groups of students now studying with me, which is really great. And Dawn, you're one of them.
Man,
Um, and so, I'm not teaching classes online yet, but I plan on doing that this year. That's one of my goals. I do have some classes coming up out of state as well. I'll be traveling and teaching at Lilydale, New York.
oh,
And that'll be on June 21st and 22nd and the 24th. I am teaching an intro to psychic development and also um, an intro to platform demonstration of mediumship. That's, for those people who have been in mediumship for a while that want to learn how to get on in front of audiences and work the stage as a medium. And the energy is quite different from doing just one or two people or a small group versus a large audience. The energy and the frequency is much more intimidating. And so the chances of you losing the connection with spirit is much greater. And so it starts messing with your confidence and all of that.
I've
So
seen
yeah, it takes practice and endurance, and it's not going to happen overnight sometimes. But I give you the keys and the knowledge and the foundations of how to work the audience and then how to still connect with spirit. So I have that class coming up. I have also an intermediate mediumship class on the 24th in Lilydale as well.
that.
And so if you're already a beginner and you're already starting to move into the intermediate, I'll be teaching that. Um, and then I also am flying to Colorado in August, where I'll be teaching mediumship there as well. Um, and You can find all my information on my website on my 2025 events page on my website. And again, that's AshevilleMedium.com. The courses in Colorado will be an intro to mediumship, and it's a 2-day workshop. And then I also will be doing, I think, a demonstration, as I think we're planning a public demonstration there. And then I also will be doing personal readings for 4 or 5 days there.
Wow.
So, yeah, and all that information of the spiritual center I can't remember the name of the spiritual center in Colorado. I
They could
apologize.
go to your webpage and find
Yeah,
out,
you could
right?
go to my 2025 events page. It's there, and you can click
Everything.
on all the information. So, for some of you that love to travel to Lilydale,
Oh,
um,
place.
it's a great place. Dawn, you've got to go sometime because I think you're
I
going to
would
love it.
love to go. And Anthony, I gotta say this, and I think you probably know I'm gonna say this ahead of time. Some people are skeptic about psychics, about mediums, but I know that you've worked with doctors, you've worked with attorneys, you've worked with all kinds of people. It's not just your, everyday people. I mean, were they skeptical?
Well, yeah, I get the analytical client in my chair. I have quite a few attorneys. I get psychologists and psychiatrists and physicians, and they're sitting across from me with the poker face, and I just do my work. I mean, I do my work, but I can see they're sitting there just staring, no facial expressions. Um, and I sometimes have to get the information out of them because they're so trying to figure out how I know this, or how I'm receiving it. And so it's kind of funny when I think about it. Of course, I'm not laughing because I'm working,
Right.
but I have to say, do you understand this information that they're saying? And there'll be like a silence. And I'm like, do you understand what they're saying? I'm like, yes, no, maybe, or I don't know. And they go, oh yeah, 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 I got it, and we start laughing, and 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 I says, I know you're trying to think about how I know this, right?
Logical. And I totally get that, Anthony. 20 years in the Air Force, I'm very logical minded too. And I'm like, how does
Yeah,
he know this about my father? How does he know this about my grandmother?
right.
Yes, that's
Well,
amazing.
just for your viewers, I was a very analytical person for
Mhm.
most of my life. And so for me I've had a couple readings by mediums, and I was never one of these people that went to go to a medium or a psychic on a regular basis. I had all these spiritual experiences happening to me, and someone recommended me to go see a medium and explained why this was happening. And they said to me, you're a medium. You
Okay.
don't even know it. You're a medium. And I said, I am not a medium and I am not doing this for a living. And my ego was like so resistant to
Yeah.
wanting to hear this information. And I just laugh now, because here I am doing this. And I'm the last person that would ever think that I would be doing this.
Oh, yes, and I've known you for years. You're very ethical. And I have to share with the listeners, I've taken some of Anthony's courses and I thought, well, I think I have some intuitive abilities because, all my life I've been extra sensitive and I would know things and I would hear things, I would see spirits, and I'm like, oh goodness. And then I'd meet other psychics down the road and they're like, Dawn, when are you going to come out? And I'm like, what are you talking about? When am I going to come out? When are you going to admit you have these abilities? I'm like, people are going to think I'm nuts. But it's something we all have. Is that right?
Yes, well, we're all psychic, and it's part of our natural senses, um, and how I think it gets kind of pressured or squashed or diminished probably around the age of like 4 or 5 years old is when we start developing what's expected of us from our parents, our family, our community. And so, as a child, you are more sensitive
Mhm.
because you've incarnated into this physical world, and you haven't really been pressured to think one way or another. And so you're far more aware and open to the spirit world, because a lot of times children experience visitations from grandpa who's passed away, and whether they've met them or maybe they haven't met them, and they tell the parents, grandpa, I was having a conversation with grandpa today,
I could just,
your father. And so there's these stories, and depending on what religion your family is around, and the degree of where you are in your religion. I mean, because religion's such a personal thing, it's very beautiful. And I embrace all religions and all
yeah.
philosophies of religion
Anthony,
because I
I'm going to
think
have
they're.
to jump in and tell you we're down to our last 40 seconds. And
Oh, okay.
people find out more about you because we could go on for
We
hours.
couldn't we? So anyway, I just wanted to add to that, um, sometimes it takes away, well, these pressures take away our psychic ability as a child. And so we start getting programmed to not think that way. So anyway,
How can we find
um,
you? redundant.
You can find me on
Insane.
AshevilleMedium.com. That's how you book your appointments, all through my website. And you can find me on Google at Anthony Mikolojeski, Psychic Medium as well, to read my Google
Thank
reviews.
you, Anthony. We're out of time. Stay empowered. Listeners, please check Anthony out. He's the real deal. He's a gift to the world.
Thank you, Don. I appreciate it.